Okay, welcome back to another episode of Third and 23. I'm your host, Alex, here to continue on with my Week 11 college football picks and predictions. Now, we got an SEC video on tap. I got two SEC games that I got for you in this video. These are going to be the only two SEC games I do this weekend. So, we're going to start out with Georgia visiting Ole Miss. Georgia, 2.5 point favorite. I believe they opened at 2, so I've seen this go up to 2.5. So some money going in there on the Georgia Bulldogs. So when you look at Georgia's last three games, Georgia's script has kind of been the same as last year. If it's not a big game, they're not showing up. Mississippi State, they beat them 41-31. Mississippi State's a terrible football team. Georgia went through the motions in that one. Georgia goes on the road as an underdog to Texas. Everybody's talking Texas is talking Texas that. Texas #1 team in the country. Well, Georgia showed up for that one. 30-15, and in my opinion, the game wasn't even that close. Dominated that game in Austin. Then a game against Florida, a Florida team that is perceived to be down. Even though this is a rivalry game, I don't think Georgia showed up the way they showed up against Texas. And they were trailing in this game. In Florida, they have quarterback injury issues. Otherwise, they may have won this game against Georgia. So another game, Georgia didn't show up. But now, Ole Miss, a high-ranked team, a team competing for a spot in the college football playoff, it's in the Grove. Georgia's going to show up for this game. Now you look at Ole Miss. Ole Miss loses a tough one to LSU in Death Valley at night, 29-26, a game that Ole Miss was leading, and they lost it late. Kind of went through the motions against Oklahoma. I don't think they took that game serious and won by 12. And then here we go, a game that I did last weekend against Arkansas. They pounded Arkansas by 30 points, did what they wanted offensively. Jordan Watkins went crazy. Should be noted, Trey Harris, top receiver for Ole Miss and one of the top receivers in the country, did not play in that game, and he's not expected to play in this game either. You can't trust all the injury reports out there in college football, unfortunately. I wish they would do something about that, but I saw that he's ruled doubtful. I'm assuming going into this game that Trey Harris is not going to play. Now you look at the numbers. Georgia's their pass off, they're led by their passing offense of Carson Beck, 12th in terms of yardage per game, 12th in the country. Yards per attempt, 7.92, pretty respectable. Not the highest, but pretty respectable yards per attempt. So that means Carson Beck is efficient going down the field, completing passes, whether it's intermediate, long, or short. One thing we've noticed with Carson Beck this season, though, he's a penchant for turnovers. Carson Beck has been an interception machine lately. When you look at the running game, Trevor Etienne, who went out in the Florida game, is supposed to be back this week. He went out with a rib injury. He's a good running back who I don't think has been getting enough carries, getting enough touches. I thought going into the season he was the best running back in the SEC. I still think talent-wise that he is, but he's not really getting the touches to show that. And they're going to need him against an Ole Miss team that ranks second in the country against the run. They've shut down everybody's running game. Part of that is, getting sacks. They're good at pressuring the quarterback as well. But they've shut down pretty much every running game they face this season, but this is going to be their stiffest test. You look at their pass defense, yards per attempt, 6.58. It's pretty respectable. In terms of yardage per game, they're somewhere, I think, in the 80s or something. But, teams are trailing against them, so they got to throw. 6.58 yards per attempt. It's pretty impressive pass defense for the running reps. So this is going to be a matchup of Georgia's offense, how good they can be in executing against an Ole Miss defense that you don't really say that a lot, right? Ole Miss's defense, but they've been pretty good this season. Then the other side of the ball, Jackson Dart. Not much needs to be said about him. Been one of the top quarterbacks in the country for the past several years. Personally, I think he's somebody who can get a bit erratic with the ball, and he'll throw a pick or two, and seems to throw them at the most crucial time. Running game, Ole Miss, 3 of their top 4 running backs are going to be, again, injury reports are unlikely to play in this game. So it's probably going to be Ulysses Bentley only. I think he's a good back, but he hasn't really gotten the touches this season that I expected him to get. Again, as I said, Trey Harris, is supposed to be out for this game, or he's ruled as doubtful. So I'm assuming that he's out for this game. So now it's going to be Jordan Watkins and company again. Jordan Watkins went crazy against Arkansas, cut like 4 or 5 touchdowns in that game, went insane. But this is in Arkansas. This is a whole different kind of animal right here. And Georgia's defensively, Georgia hasn't been their usual selves. Pass defense can be shaky at times. Run defense can be shaky at times. Not bad in the sense, but they're just not elite as they once have been. So for me, when I look at this game and when I'm looking to make my prediction, I base it really off of one thing. It doesn't have anything really to do with Georgia. It has everything to do with Ole Miss. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. These guys do not show up in big games. Had a big game last year against Georgia. Got blasted. Had a big game last year against Alabama. And I thought Ole Miss, on paper, I thought Ole Miss was a better team than Alabama. Man, they scored 10 points. Big game this year, road game in Death Valley. Ole Miss is better than LSU, in my opinion. They were leading that game. And then what happens late? LSU is who sacks up and makes the plays late in the game, who clutches up, makes the plays late in the game, converting third downs, converting fourth downs, sends it to overtime, made the plays in OT to win the game. Ole Miss looked like they were done in OT. This is a team under Lane Kiffin that constantly does not show up in big games. And here we go. We got another big game. In Georgia, man, we know they show up in big games. Give me Georgia. I'm going to lay the 2.5. I don't think it's going to be the blasting it was last year. I think it's going to be a competitive game. But give me Georgia. I'm going to lay the 2.5. Next up, we're going to Death Valley, where Alabama is visiting LSU. Alabama's also a 2.5 point favorite. This game used to be the game in the SEC, but now with the landscape changing and things, well, throughout college football have changed, this is still a huge game, but just not the game in the SEC. You look at Alabama, you're kind of saying, man, what's going on with Kalen DeBoer? This Kalen DeBoer first year at Bama, they beat South Carolina by 2 points and kind of were lucky to get away with that one. But South Carolina's really not that bad. They lose on the road to Tennessee 24-17. Josh Heupel has things humming there, and that's a tough place to play. Nick Saban lost his last game in Knoxville. Then they blow away Missouri, but Missouri has injuries in their backfield. They kind of got a gift there. Missouri starting Drew Pine at quarterback. I couldn't believe that he's still in college football, A, and B, I can't believe Missouri had him on scholarship. I've seen Drew Pine since his Notre Dame days. That's not the guy. Then LSU in their last three, as I talked about, they beat Ole Miss, clutched up and won that game late. They pounded Arkansas in a game that was supposed to be competitive, and it was not. And then they have a weird, well, I don't want to say a weird loss, but they have a loss where they're up 10 against Texas A&M, and in the second half, Texas A&M puts in their backup quarterback Marcel Reed, and they have nothing for the mobility of Marcel Reed as he's making plays, scrambling, he's making plays. I mean, I think only completed like 2 passes, but big plays, throwing the ball as well. So now when you're looking at this game, I look at Alabama's offense. I don't believe they have a running back. Jam Miller, I guess, is their best running back, so they don't have a vintage Bama running back that they typically have. But passing game, yards per attempt, 9.37 yards. Jalen Milroe, the quarterback for Bama, has been efficient throwing the ball. Big plays downfield. We all know about Ryan Williams. He's kind of cooled off a little bit lately, but Ryan Williams and others making big plays downfield in the passing game. And Milroe can execute, whether 3rd and 1, 3rd and 21, it doesn't matter. He's one of the best weapons in college football. Going in against an LSU defense, they're the pass defense, 86. They're not that great. They're still not that. They've improved over last year, but they're still not that strong. Run defense has improved. They only average allowing 3.93 yards per carry, and then against a Bama team that can't really run the ball, that could be effective. Then you look at the other side of the ball, LSU, Caden Durham at running back is who they're trying to force into the running back position. I don't really think he's that guy in a game of this magnitude. Maybe against an Arkansas, sure, but against a Bama, I don't think so. But Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback, is one of the top quarterbacks. They're actually talking about he's a first-round NFL draft pick prospect, so he might leave early. And he's got receivers like Kyron Lacey, who's one of the top receivers in the SEC. Against a Bama secondary that's had them iffy moments. By the way, that Bama run defense, they've had some iffy moments too. But still, in a game like this, I don't see Caden Durham executing on the ground. So to me, this is going to be Nussmeier versus Milroe, who comes out on top. And I got to say, Jalen Milroe, 2,300 total yards this season. Like I said, he's the best weapon in college football, overall weapon in college football. I think he's going to make some clutch plays in this one. I think you're going to have a dogfight. I think this is a 4-quarter fight. But I think Bama's defense is just a little better than LSU's, maybe a lot better in some ways. And I think Jalen Milroe is just a little better than Garrett Nussmeier, and he's going to make the plays in the fourth quarter to win this game. Give me Bama. I'm going to lay the 2.5. So anyway, that wraps this up. 2 SEC games on tap. That's 3 games total for college football this weekend. I still have another video coming out. I've got some ACC action coming in that one. So if you like the content, please like, follow, subscribe, all of that. As you can see, my YouTube handle here in a few seconds. Take care.